Welcome, friend, to Life and Liberty Radio. I'm David Householder, here to encourage your pursuit of happiness. You and I are partners, exploring our shared spiritual journeys. Together, we're dreaming and working for a free society. Tell others today about our adventure in faith and freedom. So breathe in, open your mind, lift up your spirit. Let's get started. Habemus Papam, Latin. We have a Pope, Jorge Maria Bergoglio. This is part 2 of 2 of a sort of background expose on this new Pope, because he's going to affect your life as few other people can. He is incredibly powerful. Barack Obama is the president of 330 million Americans, and Jorge Maria Bergoglio, now known as Pope Francis, is the leader of 1.3 billion Roman Catholics who pray for him by name out loud every week in church. This is a person who commands amazing loyalty and stands for the unity of the Roman Church, the largest institution on planet Earth. And we also had a change of power on the very same day in China with a new president, and we'll be doing a deal on that also. But think about that, how much power changed in one day in China and in the Roman Catholic Church. So let's talk a little bit about Jorge Maria Bergoglio. First of all, he is a Jesuit. What's a Jesuit? A Jesuit is a member of the Society of Jesus. The Society of Jesus was founded by Francis Xavier and Ignatius Loyola, two very hardcore believers. They created a rigorous sort of Marines of the Church organization way back when, and they demand two things. One is solidarity with the poor and simple life, and the second one is academic and missional rigor, along with massively intense spiritual disciplines, the Ignatian disciplines. And they are such a formidable group that the papacy at one time actually outlawed them for a substantial period of time, because they were always a sort of rival to the Pope. The Society of Jesus, the leader of the Society of Jesus, although always pledging fealty to the Pope, was always seen as a rival to the Pope. And so no Jesuits have ever been Pope. Think about that. One of the most powerful organizations within the Roman Catholic Church, and not one of them have ever become Pope until Jorge Maria Bergoglio. So he is the very first Jesuit to become the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, Pontifex Maximus, the Pontiff. And he is the alpha male of what's left of the Roman Empire, which survived in church ecclesial form. The good thing about the Roman Catholic Church is that they have a genius for inclusion. When Protestants disagree on something, they split, they break fellowship, they totally go their separate ways, they have a divorce, so to speak. Well, the Roman Catholic Church, what they do is they just include your group in the church as an organized subgroup. They have a genius for inclusion. You won't find that in Protestant churches. If you disagree with what's going on, you will get the left foot of fellowship, and you will find yourself voted off the island. This doesn't happen with the Roman Catholic churches as much. If you have a different vibe, a different set of values, they will create an order, and you will be in that order, but that order will then be under the authority of the church, the genius of inclusion. So what will this Bishop of Rome be wrestling with? We talked about in the last segment, and I hope you'll turn to that if you haven't listened, the systemic problems in the Roman Church, especially the ones that create all of the sexual scandals that go on. And the next one is secularization. This started in Europe after World War II, actually before that. But in widespread sense, after World War II in Europe, people stopped going to church. Now, that's an overstatement. There's still a lot of people in church in Europe, but church attendance started to drop dramatically after World War II, and then it started here in the last generation in the United States, especially on the coasts, the West Coast and the East Coast. And I'm living on the West Coast, which is very much a secularizing place where people less and less are going to church, as opposed to the Deep South or the Midwest, where church going is still very much a part of life. But secularization is really hurting the Roman Catholic Church. When I grew up, if you were Roman Catholic, you went to church every week. It was required, expected part of the deal. But now in America, there are more Roman Catholics not in church on Sunday than in church on Sunday. And they would still call themselves Catholics. So it's secularization of the worldview is very challenging for the Roman Catholic Church. That started, as I said, in Europe, but it is spread now to North America and starting to spread to urban areas throughout the world. So with 1.3 billion Roman Catholics, you have sort of a disease spreading within the church, and that disease is secularization. And what will the current pope do about that to re-energize the church? Now, what he does, of course, is going to be watched by everybody, because secularization doesn't just affect Catholics, it affects everyone. Church attendance in the United States has been dropping a lot in the last half generation, and those of you running churches have struggled with that. Those of you in volunteer and paid leadership know how challenging that can be. So let's all work that one together, because a secularized society is not necessarily an advancement. And the founding fathers of the United States believed that given the diversity of the United States, there was no one dominant denomination of faith, that the solution was generic spirituality. Our maker, our creator, the benefactor, providence, in God we trust, a generic sense of spirituality. Now people think there's diversity, so the solution is not generic spirituality, it is secularism, sanitized secularism, which I believe is dehumanizing. I really do. I think humans need a sense of spirituality to live out a full, colorful, many-dimensional life. So he's going to have to deal with that. And the other thing he's going to have to deal with is social issues. Now, those, of course, are marriage, traditional marriage, or so-called marriage equality, and the abortion and life issue. And there is no question in my mind the Roman Church will stand firm on those two things. That ain't changing. And those two things have stood the test of time, and they come out of what's called natural law. Natural law was codified by St. Thomas Aquinas. And Aquinas is, in my mind, for my money, the greatest theologian who ever lived, and arguably the most intelligent Roman Catholic ever to walk the earth. Thomas is called, in theological circles, simply the theologian, and he wrote his gigantic Summa, which is the summation of all thought that is just never been equaled. It's phenomenal writing. And he quotes the philosopher. The philosopher, of course, is Augustine, with whom he has a lot of disagreements. And the commentator, of course, is the Islamic, Middle Eastern, Arabic-speaking person who took Augustine's writing and made sure that Thomas got a copy, so to speak, through the centuries. But Thomas believed in natural law. Natural law, there are certain things that are just true. And those natural law things have to do with marriage, have to do with life, have to do with the fact that murder is always wrong, no matter if people vote it out as not being wrong. So natural law has affected the Roman Catholic Church for all of its social teaching and has had a gigantic effect on the United States of America, because another Thomas, not Aquinas, but Jefferson, was his biggest fan, Aquinas' biggest fan in the Western Hemisphere, and arguably the best Thomas scholar ever. And Thomas Jefferson put and grounded our republic in natural law, and he did so because he admired Aquinas a great deal, and also because Jefferson saw that he could use Aquinas to ground our rights in a creator's gift, a creator's gifting, and make them inalienable. And unalienable means you can't give them away. Your car is alienable in legal terms. In other words, you can sell it to someone and not have it anymore. He believed that our rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are so intrinsic to us that you literally cannot get rid of them. It's part of being human, and we are endowed by our Creator, capital C Creator, and grounded the Republic in that kind of thinking, that generic spirituality. So it's affected America in a big way. So the social issues, there will be no budging. Marriage and life issues, abortion issues will stay the same. And demographics is another issue. I was raised in the 60s asking my mother, why do other families have so many more kids than we do? She said in hushed tones, because they're Catholic. And I thought, oh, what does that mean? Well, basically it meant they weren't using birth control, because it's been the teaching of the Roman Church not to use birth control. And everybody poo-pooed that as old-fashioned with all of the overpopulation happening in the world. And oh my goodness, how can they be so backward? Well, looking at today's demographics throughout the world, the fact that we are well below zero population growth in the United States, that Europe will probably never recover from its demographic dive, and Russia is in serious trouble, as is Japan and China. Turns out maybe the Roman Catholics were right about birth control. Now, I don't mean in the legalistic sense of never ever using birth control or anything like that, because it's a sin or something. That's not the point. Their point early on, and we missed it for a generation to our peril, is that it's not natural. It's not the Creator's plan A to stop pregnancy. And the truth is, it's hard to keep the human race going. We have a hard time with childbirth. We have a hard time with pregnancy. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And we have to be fruitful and multiply, encourage early marriages, and encourage children. And we do the opposite, and we're suffering for it, economically and otherwise. We used to have population pyramids in our countries, demographically, by age. Now we've got population trees with a narrow trunk with kids and a huge elderly population. That ain't going to work economically or otherwise, and you can kiss retirement goodbye if that continues. So we do need to repopulate the Earth. Those of you who are younger will see the population of planet Earth start to drop in your lifetime. It will start slow, and it will accelerate unless things turn around. Maybe the Roman Catholics were right about birth control all along. So let's pray for the Pope. Let's pray that he does well. Let's pray that he's able to deal with the systemic problems which cause the sexual issues within the church, especially the scandals. Let's pray that he can deal with the secularization. Let's pray that he can hold to his guns with the natural law issues. And let's pray that maybe the rest of the world pays attention to the long-standing Roman Catholic teaching promoting the birth of children. Well, that's all for today on Life and Liberty Radio. Thanks so much for sharing this part of your spiritual journey with me. Now, the views on this program are not necessarily those of my advertisers, sponsors, places I work or do business with. They're purely my own, but I'm sharing them with you, so share your ideas with me. Write me on Twitter at Liberty House, LIBERTYHOUS, no E. Until next time, let's continue dreaming and working for a free and spiritually grounded society.